Okay, we're going to get underway. Boy, that really sounds bad, doesn't it? Does that sound as bad to you as it does to me? He already replaced them twice. And this is being recorded, but if it sounds this way here, it's going to sound this way on a tape, right? So even though it's bad here, it's okay on a tape? So we're going to sacrifice all you for the tape, is what it is. No, but I mean, it'll come through okay on the tape. Okay. Does that sound grating to anybody? Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to get underway. Our third person isn't here yet. He should show up eventually. My name is Ed Foote. This is the Advanced Choreography panel. There are three of us. I want to introduce first from Nottingham, England, the Sheriff of Nottingham, Dave Clay. Dave Clay has been calling for 48 years. He's one of the premier callers in England. I had the opportunity to attend one of his dances 20 years ago, and it was so good I vowed that I would go back someday, and I had the chance last year. And so he is just very knowledgeable, and again, I say he's considered one of the premier callers of England. Our second panelist is Bill Harrison. He's from Maryland. He's from Maryland, and he has been calling, how many years have you been calling? 35 years. And a national traveling caller, and calls at festivals, has several clubs in his own area. So he is just well qualified, to speak on this topic, does a lot of advanced work. And my name is Ed Foote. I've been calling for 40 years, and I live in Pittsburgh. The format for today, we're going to divide this session into two parts. Part A is teaching advanced, and Part B will be choreography at advanced dances. Each of us will make a brief presentation on teaching advanced in terms of general comments, specific calls that we would like to see taught in a certain way, something like this. After each person's presentation, we will entertain questions from the floor, and then we'll go to the next person and so on. When all three of us are done, we'll have final questions on teaching advanced. Then we'll repeat the same process for calling advanced. For those that have just come into the room, apologize for the sound. The sound is as a result of bad speakers in the hall. Because the session is being taped, I'm told that the sound will be okay on the tape, but unfortunately we're going to have to suffer through with the sound in here. Also, all questions, if you have a question and it's brief, then the person up here will repeat it on the mic. If it's a long question, then we need you to come up and use the mic, because all comments really have to go on the tape. So with that, we'll start with Dave Clay on teaching advanced.
Thank you, Ed. Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here. I have no specific choreographic examples, but what I thought you'd be interested in hearing was my own approach to teaching the advanced itself. And my approach might be a little bit unconventional, or less conventional, shall I say, because I have a high expectation of the dancers who enter the advanced program. When we first started the advanced program in England, about, must be 23 years ago, nearly all of our dancers who came into the program at that time were very, very experienced plus dancers, very experienced. So our responses from them was much greater. As the battery went down, we recruited from the remaining dancers, then the experience of the dancers coming into the program got less and less. So we had to work harder and harder to get our standards up at advanced, or alternatively we had to dilute the advanced program and bring the the level of, if you like, difficulty down in the advanced program. And I guess that's what's happened. But nonetheless, I still have a fairly high expectation of my dancers. If they come from Plus, I believe they should be experienced Plus dancers before they come into the program. And one of the first things we try to do is to examine just how good or what the depth of their knowledge is at Plus when they first come in. So that's one of the things which we always look at. Whilst I'm unconventional in my expectations, I'm also extremely conventional and not at all innovative, as was the suggestion earlier on regarding the mainstream program. Regarding the teaching program, I'm a firm believer in the CALLERLAB advanced teaching order, and I use it all the time, and I would recommend everybody teach from the order itself. It gives the dancers a guide as to what they're going to get and when they're going to get it, and also where they stand. I would expect my dancers at this stage to be reading their own definitions, whereas in the earlier programs we tell them the definitions. So we place a bigger responsibility, not total, but a bigger responsibility on our dancers to understand the definitions themselves. So using the teaching order gives them a very clear picture of where they're getting and when they're going to be there. So all our class members would be issued with complete checklists. They'd be issued complete definitions and the glossaries, etc., so that they start with the basic information. In fact, they start with as much information as we do, and as you well know as dancers, as callers, after a short time they usually know more than we do anyway. Okay. And then, generally speaking, I follow the recommended teaching order. Now when I say I follow it, I do occasionally bring calls forward, just occasionally, but I don't delay calls. I usually find that the way that the teaching list has been written is good enough in itself. So I follow it pretty well, exactly as it's suggested. I would tend not to, again, another strange thing, with items like pass in and pass out, quarter in, quarter out, or where they're separated on the program itself, or they're not by very much, they are separated, I would tend to teach them together. Now that's again a little bit unconventional, but I feel while you're talking to them and explaining one principle, you might as well say, well, this is a pass through quarter in, this is a pass through quarter out. And I think that by teaching the two together, you get a better response. Rather than bring it back later, they don't see it as a separate call. Okay? It's like, shall we say, for example, pass and roll your neighbour, and the left pass and roll your neighbour. I would teach those both together. Okay, not instantly, but at the same teaching time, because I don't personally see that if you're teaching them the definition, there is really any difference between the pass and roll your neighbour and the left pass and roll your neighbour. Whereas in the recommended teaching order, you'll probably find they are separated and bring in later. Wheel through, left wheel through. I would do those both together to get them in at the same time. Okay. I tend not to work with singing calls in the class, but that's purely a personal preference. I know a lot of callers like to work the singing calls into their class, but maybe that's because I'm lazy that I don't sort of emphasize that. I like to spend my time in workshopping the group, workshopping them hard throughout the class, and I find that you can focus more through pattern than you can through the singing call. No doubt other people will see it slightly differently. Okay. So basically my message really is that when I'm teaching, I use the CALLERLAB list. That is the tool of my trade. That's my guide. It keeps control of where the group is and take it from there. Okay.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave? Okay, Bill? Bill Harrison.
Thank you. One of the major things that I do when I teach the advanced program, and actually any other program, is I really delve into the concept of leaders and trailers. I want them to understand what leaders mean and what trailers mean, and actually use them with the current calls that they already know. It's a lot easier to explain and teach by using that terminology. Everybody in here, I believe, understand leaders and trailers? Yes? Okay. No questions about leaders and trailers. Can I show you some? Would you like to see some? Okay. Can I get a square up, please? 4 girls, 4 boys would be great. The reason that I like to delve into the leaders and trailers is because when folks enter into the advanced program to learn it, obviously they're coming from the mainstream or the plus program, making their way into it. The head couples star through, and everybody do a double pass through. And from here, most dancers, no matter where they learn lead, couple, partner, trade, do that. They will, but they don't really understand what leaders and trailers are. They figure out by the English language that, hey, I'm looking at somebody's back and they're in front of me, they're leading me, so it has to be them. When we get into the choreography in the advanced program, there's a lot of things that we can do if we understand what leaders and trailers really are. Okay, so for example, everybody star through, pass through, wheel and deal, and do a double pass through. So I will teach right from the get-go. In the very beginning, I want them to understand leaders and trailers. And I'll say, similar to this, that if you're looking out of the group of 4 on your own side, you are a lead dancer. If you're looking into that group, to that box of 4, you are a trailing dancer. Now, I understand that some dancers are going to consume that and say, I got it, and some are going to say, wait a minute, am I looking into the box? Am I looking out of the box? And when I see their face, I decide that I'll say, well, you can think about it this way. If I see a body part in the group of 4 that I have on my own side, being a back, a side, a front, I am a trailing dancer. If I do not see a body part in my own group, on my own side, that means back, side, or front, I am a lead dancer. So the leaders, partner, trade. We are all now what? We're all trailers. We're looking into this box of 4, or we see a body part. Now, once I get them to kind of consume that and understand a little bit, then I will do something like everybody touch a quarter. I will then talk to them about the call split circulate and say, look, you understand how to do a split circulate. The response is yes. This time I want you to pay attention to what the lead dancers are doing. Who are the lead dancers? The girls are. So they have a folding action. They're working in this split box. They're moving around the corner. It's a right-handed, so they should be moving to the right. Trailing dancers, raise your hand, i.e. the men. They are moving across the box of 4. Everybody do a split circulate. I will do another split circulate. Go ahead. And obviously I will take the time to tell them who the leader and who the trailer is. All the leaders do a U-turn back. And that's all the girls. I will say, what are you now? They say trailers. So now if we do the call split circulate, I'm going to incorporate into them another little rule that they don't probably use as often. And that is, anytime 2 dancers move towards each other, they pass what? Right shoulders. So I'm still working on leader trailer, but I've given them another little clue. everybody do a split circulate. So they're going to have to pass by because they're doing that part. If I ask them to do another split circulate, they are what? Leaders. They're leaders. And each leader has a folding action. Remembering this, that when two dancers come towards each other, what do? They pass right shoulders. Okay? So it feels like you're doing a partner trade, but technically it is not. Okay? Split circulate. And then I'll go on. Everybody pass through, bend the line, just to give you a little different wall to look at. I'll take them a little further and say split circulate once. Go ahead. And a half. Very good. And so now I'll say, who are the leaders now? So I'm getting them used to adjusting and saying, I have a group on my own side. I have leaders and trailers. Most of our calls are leader-trailer dependent. Okay. All the leaders do a U-turn back. Great. Everybody pass through. Wheel and deal. Okay. All the leaders do a U-turn back. Normally from here, the dancer learning will have difficulty in doing that because they're going to remember the words I said earlier. They're going to remember probably body part a lot quicker than they remember looking into the box of four or looking out of the box of four. Notice that the four in the center were looking at a body part. So some will just stand there and say, he said, if I see a body part, I am a trailing dancer. But I didn't say center four, so you remind them it's each side of four. Okay? You're going to have to say that again.
Jerry Hardy, how do you define to the dancers who are plus dancers and should know this, what the definition of the box is?
Anytime that I teach any program, I do not take anybody's experience and judge what they do know or what they do not know. I treat everybody as they know nothing. So anything that I want to start in dealing with boxes, split, I'm teaching that at the moment I start talking about it. I do not assume at any point in time that you know it. I don't want you to. I teach it as if you're brand new, even if you have an idea. So here's where we're talking about it right now. Did I answer the question? Good? No, I didn't. Okay?
Tell me how you would define the box. I mean, some people may not understand where it is, how it is defined, split down the middle, or four people in your side of the square, or...
Okay. First off, we talked about earlier that it's a group of four on each side. Obviously, if I use the word split, that divides up the process of your set. There's four on one side, and there's four on another. So I really key in on the word split, and that's how I define the groups of four. And there's terminology of a box of four. There's terminology each side of four. There's on your own side, and all are English word-speaking type things. And that's how I approach the situation. Okay? Does that better answer? Good. Touch a quarter. Okay? All the leaders trade. So now I want to get them dancing with each other, okay, other than just within each group of four or on a split basis. Okay? Pass through, wheel and deal. Okay? In the middle, do a slide through. The same ones touch a quarter while the outside's half sachet. Notice I have everybody active, so if I want to work split, I can because everybody was active as far as I'm concerned. So, but I will help them and say, work each side of four. The leaders, you turn back. Go ahead. And it should have been one boy. Because, and this is the thing that we drill by doing the leader trailer. And, you know, you can do a lot of material with just this in one given evening. Okay? Touch a quarter. All the boys run around the girls. Pass through, wheel and deal. Now the four in the middle do step to a wave. All of you dance the advanced program, is that correct? Okay, all right. Oh, you call it. Okay. Well, from here, okay, there's calls that we use like scoot and weave. And scoot and weave is a leader-trailer call. But from this quarter tag formation, we are in trailing boxes. Okay? So we have to do the trailing part of the call. It's very difficult for the dancer to understand why this is a trailing box, because you have this ocean wave in the center and couples on the outside. But as you've danced, you've done scoot and weave, and then there's other calls that we can do, like scoot back, for example. You know how to do a scoot back. I'm going to ask you to do a scoot back, and then I'm going to come back and talk to you. Everybody scoot back. Okay? Scoot back itself is a leader-trailer call. Do you agree? Okay, the leaders on a scoot back have a folding action. The trailers extend, trade, and extend. What part did you do from the quarter tag? You did the trailing part. We all extend it, we trade it, we extend it back. And this is the reason why we have a trailing box, and this is why we do these calls this way. So, once again, we're back to the leader-trailer. Alrighty? The wave dancers swing through, whilst the others you turn back. So we have other calls like scoot and weave. We have calls like follow through that are in other programs that are leader trailer dependent, and from the quarter tag we're able to use those calls in the trailing situation. Okay? Everybody extend. Everybody following so far? Good. Swing through. Boys run. Bend the line. Another thing that I touch on too, everybody touch a quarter. I start to also get into columns, and I want them to understand that there's no leader-trailer of a column. Column now becomes number 1 dancer, 2 dancer, 3 dancer, 4 dancer. Okay? And I really like to get into that and have them understand that the very first person at the top of the column on each side is the number 1 dancer. And the next person's number 2, and the next person's number 3, and the next person's number 4. Okay? You may ask why. And the reason is because there are calls that are number 1, 2, 3, and 4 dependent. And we can use them by understanding this. In the column circulate. Okay? All the men run around the girls. So I'll ask you, even from here, even though it's not a right-handed column or a left-handed column, this is a column. Based off of what I told you earlier, column dancer 1, dancer 2, dancer 3, and dancer 4, we are now what? 2s and 4s. Absolutely. Everybody pass through. We're all now what? Dealing with columns. 1s and 3s. Absolutely. Centers pass through. Leaders, partner trade. Slide through. Touch a quarter. Okay, in the call, checkmate the column. The number 1 dancer and the number 2 dancer have a function. Okay. In number 3 and number 4 have their own function. Okay. Checkmate the column. Go. Check all the way through. Okay, and step straight ahead. Okay, don't worry about it. Bend the line. It was a quick teach. Okay. Everybody pass in. So now that we understand that the call checkmate the column has a 3 and 4 and a 1 and 2 process, if you hear the call checkmate the column from here, we have to assess what are we in the column. We're number what? 3s and 4s. Now in the call checkmate the column, 3s and 4s are going to be doing 2 column circulates. They're going to quarter in, hold hands, and step straight out as a couple. Alrighty? So let's do the first part by doing 2 column circulates. Go. We're then going to quarter in. Now, we can't hold hands, obviously, as a couple and walk by these people, so the default is I need to be over in their spot. So I'm going to pass by them right shoulders as they are coming at me, because we know the rule of 2 dancers coming towards each other, pass right shoulders, and my rule is if the guy's bigger than I don't care. Okay? Very good. All right. Tag the line all the way down. Great. So now if I want to use just the call checkmate the column and utilize the numbering system 1, 2, 3, 4 dancer, we're now what? 1s and 2s. I believe the definition states that the 1s and 2s will do 4 column circulates. And once they've completed that, they will quarter in, and they're complete. Alrighty? So I look at it as you are doing these 4 column circulates, bodies are moving towards each other. So I would prefer the people to stay right shoulders as they are doing these 4 column circulates. Okay? Even though they're coming to you, please maintain your count and don't lose that. And pass right shoulders on the way. Checkmate the column. So do your columns passing right shoulder all the way to the opposite end, and when you're there, quarter in, and we're done. Okay? Yes.
John Marshall, Virginia. Question, Bill. When you're using that application, how do you help the dancer? If you're out at a dance and you want to use it, it's not a workshop environment. You decide you want to use this as something creative, for your dance floor. Is there any way, any wording that you use to help them with that, other than what you've just said here, which is lengthy, but in real time, for example, is there a way you do that?
Well, normally I would pick the number 3 and 4. The reason I would pick 3 and 4 is because if I'm calling reality speed, they're dancing along, and I say checkmate the column, I can now help them by saying double pass through, that equals my 2 circulates, face in, everybody pass through, and I have them doing the same thing. Doing it from the number 1 and 2, you will have to really think pretty quick, and you possibly could use the word track 2 or feel like you're doing a track 2 and then quarter in. Okay, so you can use it that way as well. Okay, as long as they understand that they're not doing a track 2. Starts like. Okay, and so John had mentioned he uses the verbiage starts like a track 2. Okay, and then I tell them to quarter in when they get down there. No big deal. But in real time, it just gives them a quick process to do something different, creative, on spur of the moment, but yet they're dancing, not standing listen. Okay? Thank you guys so much, very much, for doing that.
Definitely. One point, if you were using the checkmate as Bill was there, if you're using 3 and 4, that is from the starting double pass-through position, if you're dancing it by definition, you do have a dilemma, because you have the circulate twice, quarter in, and as a couple circulate. It is not a pass-through. Okay. So if you're following your definition, your dancers may query that with you. So if you're starting double pass-through position, and you call checkmate the column, 2 circulates, quarter in, and as a couple circulate, is your CALLERLAB definition.
Is it really as a couple? Is it really? Okay. Then, so, yeah, it's just something we've done for so many years, but if it states that, there's a way to get around that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, because if you did couple circulate from there, you would have the couples pass right shoulder as one unit and then slide back over. And you could still use that if the definition definitely states couples circulate. So you could still do that process and have them end up on the same spots they should have, be it if they're right-hand, left-hand column.
Any other questions for Bill? Okay.
Okay. Yes, John Marshall. And the question to Dave is the last part of the checkmate dance as a couple circulate when you're 3s and 4s, or is it a pass-through?
Well, it's an uncommon usage for a start, using your start double pass-through for checkmate. But if you're using it for variety, you will find most people do a pass-through. But it's incorrect. And in my own group, I would tell them it's not a pass-through, and then they would ignore me and not do. Yeah, it's called democracy, but the dancer power takes over, and they don't like the couple circulate, so they pass through because John Marshall says okay. Because when he calls it, he doesn't make the point, you see. Okay. The other one, there was a query about splitting the square, or the boxes, how you identified boxes. Just to sort of add a little bit more to that, if you're looking at the boxes, I would start by emphasizing the center box. Begin with your center box. That's the very first thing you need to do in your square. So they're looking at 4 people. A box is 4 people. That's the first thing to do also. So begin by introducing that center box, doing your leaders, trailers, or whatever it may be in that center box, and then encompass all 8 people, and then say, well, to do this, we need to divide into 2 boxes of 8 people. There's sometimes a dilemma in people's mind as to where we split, whether we split on the long axis. That was exactly the word I was trying to think of, Bill. Thank you. Yep. Whether you split down the long axis or whether you split down the short axis. So I would start in the middle and then divide them into 2 boxes, and they'll probably be a little bit easier for them to recognize those 2 boxes.
Okay. My comment on teaching advanced, I have really 3 parts, 1 philosophical and 2 on specific calls. Dave is in a fortunate position in England because when he gets people coming to an advanced class, they're already highly trained at mainstream and plus, because in England, mainstream and plus DBD is the norm, where here in this country it isn't. So he has less work to do in his class than we have to do here. I agree completely with the statement that Bill made. You assume the dancers know nothing when they come to the class, and you start and teach them the correct way. They may have heard something wrong some other place, so you assume they know nothing. And my rule of thumb always is that in A1 class, you go back and reteach. For every advanced call you teach, for every A1 call you teach, you go back and reteach a mainstream or plus call DBD. Now, you don't have to go back. I mean, there's what, 68 calls on mainstream and 28 or so on plus. There's 100 calls, but you don't have to go back and reteach 100 calls, because only about 30 or only about 35 calls at mainstream plus lend themselves to DBD. So if we follow this formula of reteaching 1 mainstream or plus call for every A1 call we teach, that will mean that by the time we are done teaching our A1 class, we will have covered mainstream and DBD for those calls that need to be covered. An advanced dance is supposed to include mainstream plus DBD. Unfortunately, in this country, a lot of callers don't do that. They become enamored with the advanced names and call very little mainstream or plus at an advanced dance, and then the dancers become what I call top-heavy. They can do advanced calls, they can't do mainstream and plus. To me, there's nothing more, it's the correct word I want, discouraging than to see A2 dancers not be able to do mainstream calls. I mean, and it carries right on over into challenge. C1 dancers can't do mainstream and plus. To me, that is totally dumb. You want to ask the question, if you can't do mainstream, what are you doing at A2? Unfortunately, it isn't always the dancer's fault. A lot of it has to be put with the callers, because if the callers don't go back and reteach mainstream and plus DBD in advanced class, then it's not the dancer's fault they didn't get it. They were just stuck with the caller and didn't do this. If more callers would go back and reteach mainstream plus DBD, we'd have a much stronger advanced program. So consider that you aren't doing this. And what I tell dancers is that if you're in an advanced class and your caller is not teaching you mainstream and plus DBD at the same time that he or she is teaching you the advanced calls, then go up to the caller and request that. and in fact demand it, because that's what advanced is. And if your caller doesn't give you that, then you're going to be hung out to dry when you go to advanced dances with other callers and they do this stuff DBD, and you break down only because you just weren't trained by your caller. By the way, I personally feel that an A1 dance, not a class, but an A1 dance, 1/3 of that dance should be DBD, mainstream, and plus. And that an A2 dance, 10 to 15% of that dance should be DBD, mainstream, and plus. Now that's only my personal feeling, but that encompasses then the whole idea that mainstream and plus DVD is part of the advanced program. Okay, now let's look at 2 A1 calls that the dancers... Oh, question. Yeah. Well, I'm going to be able to...
Thanks, John Marshall. What Ed was pointing out, and I agree with completely, right from the ground zero, but those of us who have been calling advanced and so on for a very long time have always believed that DBD, APD, whatever term you want to apply to it, is part and parcel of advanced. Well, we don't want to forget the fact that as a caller who's now decided you're going to teach A1 or A2 or both, depending on where you are in the country, because some areas don't separate them, your homework's just become a lot heavier if you've not been calling DBD, mainstream, and plus. You need to know that too, as well as the advanced stuff that you're learning how to teach, and of course the all-position aspects of the advanced calls. Granted, many of them are built upon, and the best dancers we know, think about it, the best dancers you know, invariably, dance multiple levels. You know, we always see it. You know, you'll see somebody who dances C1, C2 even, you know, it's like, man, they're really good. Yeah, we also saw them at the advanced dance last week. Or they were out at the Plus Hall dancing with friends. They're always the best dancers because they are in touch with that. And so don't forget, you as a caller need to do your homework if you don't know the positional aspects of mainstream and plus. If you've done standard application only, that's fine, but you have some homework to do on that part as well.
Lynn Webster from Minneapolis. My question is, maybe you guys can address this. The level of dancers coming up to the advanced level is lower than what it used to be, and then the numbers. Oftentimes we're looking for people to fill our halls to do our classes, and we're taking people that maybe aren't ready for the advanced level. And how do you deal with that?
It's one of the common problems. Sometimes the dancers come in for the best possible reasons, even though they're not good enough. They may be coming with their own friends. So it's very difficult to split them off when that happens. If they're not, I was going to say something, and it's gone out of my mind now, so I'm going to pass the mic on. It'll come back to me in a second, okay?
I tell people that ask me if they want to, can they take an advanced class, I screen them. And if they're not ready, I tell them, you have to stay at Plus for longer. To me, the whole dance program and philosophy is far more important than the dollars. And if you let people into an advanced class that aren't qualified, they're going to pollute the other dancers who are qualified, may cause them to get discouraged and drop out, and all of a sudden you don't have a class because of these people that weren't qualified in the first place. And if you let people that aren't qualified into your class, then the other people who are qualified look at you and say, well, what kind of person are you that you let these people in? So I know that isn't the popular answer, and I know most callers let anybody in that wants in, but I don't.
Les Greenwood, I had an experience at a convention at McMaster years ago when they went to a trail-in dance, and I had the pleasure of calling that dance. And right down front for most of the evening was a couple who were continually broken down at the plus level dance that I was calling. He came up to me, Tim Crawford was standing beside me, and this couple came up to me and said, Les, we're sorry we're giving you so much problem, but we danced C2 in Florida all winter. And Tim Crawford said, what's the first call on the C2 list? And the dancer said, geez, I don't recall. He said, it's circle to the left.
That's very good. That's good. Okay. Yeah.
Jerry Hardy, Stone Ridge, New York. This is a question to your teaching style. Do you get feedback from the floor while you're teaching? Do you ask questions? You ask for answers from your students?
I can't. The only question I ask my students are, do you understand what we're doing? And if you don't, I repeat it. That's the only thing I can think of.
I don't think I ask them. They usually tell me. It's usually a negative if they do. I think a lot of dancers, one of the problems is a lot of dancers, I encourage them to ask questions, which they never do. So what they usually do is ask somebody else. So it might be as well to have nominated people within your group who are capable of either giving them the answer or informing on them. So, you know, just encourage them to say, you know, well, if you have questions, then I'm going to be free. If I'm not free, then Jack or Mary will either answer your question or come back to you. But they're usually scared to approach the caller.
Most of the time, for me, I can read people's faces. And I can tell if they're consuming what I'm talking about, if they're understanding what I'm talking about. And when I see that deer in the headlight look, then I definitely will go back over it again. But a lot of people who are taking these types of lessons, they'll come up and say, gee, I really do not quite understand what I'm supposed to do. So you spend time and go and talk to them and do something, or you make sure that's the thing you're going to review the minute you pick up the mic for the next tip. So there's always an adjustment there. You may have a plan, but a plan is a guideline, and it's always going to be changed, and it's not rigid. You have a goal, but the bottom line is you want everybody to be at that end result. So if you have to add a couple more nights, a month, or whatever, you do the best you can.
I don't teach advanced, this is Jerry Hardy again. I teach mainstream and plus, but I always ask for feedback from the floor, whether it's a hand raise, do you understand, do you have any questions, and they usually give it to me. They usually do comment on what I'm teaching, but many times you'll find dancers who cannot even give you the name of the call, even in mainstream and plus. They say, you know that call that you do, you know, and I say, well, what's the name of the call? Gee, I don't know, but you know, you do this.
Chuck Jaworski, Chicago, Illinois. I have to thank my wife for this. She constantly reminds me, no matter what class I'm teaching, including round dancing, to have the dancers verbalize, now what is the name of this call? Have them say it out loud. And when Bill had them, leaders, put your hands up, have them say it out loud. I'm a leader, I'm a trailer. If you verbalize it, you're working on two levels, you know, the seeing and the hearing, and the more ways you can get it into their heads, the better chance of retention.
That's a good point. I've never done that, but that sounds interesting. As you teach a call, ask the dancers to say what the name of the call is that you've told them, so that it gets more ingrained. Let's get a square up real quick. Heard a comment from the floor, the old comment that callers can't dance. I've never agreed with that. I feel it's the caller's responsibility to be able to dance, and that the caller should be able to outdance 90% of the people that he's calling for. I think it's just a thing probably that the dancers do to kind of make fun of the callers. We're going to look at two calls that people don't usually break down on, but we're going to look at a couple styling things to make it smoother. Let's have the heads lead right, veer left, bend the line, pass the ocean, swing through, boys run, everybody California twirl. Okay. Bend the line. We're going to start at I want to get your waves going the other way. Pass through, bend the line, pass the ocean, swing through, boys run. So we have everybody California twirl. We now have 2 face lines, left-handed 2 face lines, boys in the middle, girls in the end. On the call, cast a shadow. Remember this footprint, just come right back to here. I'm going to call cast a shadow and then just come right back to it, okay? Cast a shadow, go. That was very good. Okay, get back to the footprint. They actually proved that callers make the best dancers because they did what I'm going to comment on. And it's easiest for you here. Watch less. The key on cast a shadow for the center who is looking out, that the center looking out overdoes the loop so that the last step is directly into the ending ocean wave. Often the center looking out will cut it short, and then they crash into the people that are casting 3/4 on the outside. So I tell the center dancer looking out to over-exaggerate the loop, make it a giant clover leaf, and the key, your last step should be straight ahead. If your last step is not straight ahead, it means your loop has been too short. Cast a shadow. Watch Les, who just does it beautifully. Okay. All right. You don't count. Boys run around a girl, bend the line, pass through. The other call is the call explode the line. Everybody do an explode the line. See, once again, because callers make the best dancers, they just did that beautifully. Do a U-turn back. Yes, we're going to do another one. Pass through. The key on explode the line, the dancers will usually survive it. But what happens, the center dancers, if they don't step far enough forward, they get all glummed in with the end dancers who are quartering in and pulling by. The key to make explode the line smooth is that we tell the end dancers to rock backward a half a step before they quarter in and pull by. That will make the thing smooth for everybody. Explode the line, the ends rock backward, quarter in, and now it's smooth for everybody. If you haven't been giving your dancers that hint, consider doing so because it smooths it out for everybody. Any questions on those 2 figures? Okay, thank you to the square. Yep. Hey, do you have a comment?
Peggy Lee from Baltimore, Maryland. I just want to make a comment on teaching in mainstream and plus programs. If you get a dry marker easel, stand-up board, a small one that you can put on the table where your equipment is, and just write the name of the calls that you're going over that evening, and again have them repeat it, but then they can read it as well. This will also help click in. And I do want to say that I learned my plus DVD from Bill Harrison, and he is an excellent teacher. The plus teacher that I had rushed through plus programs so fast that just the calls were not ingrained. And when I went through his plus DVD class, that's where I actually learned them. He taught them the regular way, then he did them the DVD way, and my dancing ability is greatly attributed to Bill Harrison.
Very good. One comment on that, too. You may have some dancers come to you and say, well, I took a DVD class. Well, maybe the caller only showed the calls from one other position in that class where there are 5 different positions for that call. So there's quality DVD classes, which obviously Bill has, and then there's non-quality DVD classes. And, of course, at advanced, we want the quality. So we want all the positions of the different calls shown, not just one other position.
The idea of writing the call down I thought was quite a nice one, because I do remember one particular group where a guy was well through his learning process and he still didn't understand why we did an element left in the animal style.
I have a question for Ed. When you do the cast a shadow, do you do anything previous to getting into that call with the end dancers?
I'm usually doing a couple circulate prior to it.
I meant like in order to get the ends to do their part of the cast of shadow, because we do a half a zoom there. Do you visit zoom and half a zoom prior to getting to the cast of shadow is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I do all that on the cast of shadow. I'm really talking about graduated dancers who are still looking not the best on cast of shadow, and that's the one spot where they're not looking the best. Okay, now we're going to move on to choreography at an advanced dance. Each of us are going to, and we're going to have to cut each of our presentations a little short because we're getting close to the end. And then, any questions from you all on this?
Thanks, Ed. I thought it might be different, just for a change, to cover the all four couples concept and the all eight concept. I know some of you obviously already use it, and maybe just use it in the basic sense, but there's tremendous variety contained within the all four couples and all eight concepts. One of the problems is that the concepts are actually right at the very end of the teaching order, and whilst I was praising CALLERLAB teaching orders, this is one item of it I actually don't agree with. Because it's such a complex concept that can be expanded, it's probably better if you introduce it early on. Start using the simpler all four couple calls, say for example all four couples right and left through, very early in the A1, not necessarily in the A2, because otherwise you'll find you get to the end of your teaching program and you say, okay, well, because all we've got left is the all four couples concept, which will probably take you another 4 weeks if you cover it in any depth, if you covered it in depth. But I thought we might look at it today. How many of you here use a lot of all four couples? That's good. We should get plenty of input on this one then. Okay. It might be better if we have a square. Okay. So if we can have a square here on this one, and show you one or two of the less commonly used calls. By the way, I do have a handout on this. I did make some notes, so if you want a handout before you go, then please come up to the table, and you can take this away and add to it and do what you like with it. Okay. The all four couples concept requires four couples, generally speaking. Yeah. Yeah. Since they revised the definition on this in the definitions list, it's a much better definition for newer callers coming across it. It's very precise. It gives you much clearer guidelines on how to use it, particularly with regard to which hand you use and which shoulder you pass. And it is very crucial as you go along. But the dancers don't see it as crucial. They just find their way to the opposite side of the square and often disregard it. For example, the all four couples right and left through, just as the basic starter, is to turn face your corner position from here. You pass right shoulder. You give a right pull by. You pass left shoulder. You give a left and courtesy turn. Okay, and it's important that we emphasize that to our dancers, that we're alternating our hands, we're alternating our shoulders as well. Okay, if we're going to get them going. All four couples, I'm going to assume you know all these, so we'll see. All four couples, square chain through. Okay, now that's fine. I'm glad you did that because it made me feel worthwhile. Okay. If you like, you just regroup your square again. Okay. Your dancers need to remember what's contained within a square chain through. And it isn't simply a question of introducing an all four couples prefix and saying, okay guys, all four couples square chain through. It simply won't work. They need to be told how to do a four couples square chain through around the outside. But your best way is to teach them to square chain through, or refresh them on their square chain through. Head square chain through. Right hand, step in, left swing through, left turn through. Walk straight ahead. Okay. Square through one hand, step into the left-handed wave. Quarter in, step into the left-handed. Square through one hand. Turn into a left-handed wave. Okay. We're doing the square through. Okay. Left swing through. I think we're losing a little bit on the... Right. And then the left turn through. Okay. We're going through pretty quickly here. Okay. Just bend your lines and regroup your square. Doesn't matter who you're with. Okay. Right. So turn your back on your partner. First one is a right shoulder pass. the first hand in a square chain through is the first hand of a square through. So it's a right hand. Okay? Now what was the next thing we did? Step through and step to a left hand wave. So we got to pass the next one because we don't work with her, step to the left hand wave. Remember to always reinforce with the all four couples that if you're ahead, you never work with the side. Okay? You never work with the side if you're ahead. So although you're going past them, they don't form part of your square chain through. You only work with the ones you were facing. So don't touch hands with anybody else. Okay. Do your left swing through, which is the all 8 left swing through, star across the middle. Do a left turn through, and then use the footprint, square footprints rule, walk ahead, face out on the footprints where you were facing when you completed the move. Everybody California twirl. Okay. So again, you've got to reinforce the square chain through to your dancers in the first instance. Let's have all the boys run. Okay, 4 mini waves. You've got 4 mini waves here. Okay, you've got a head box and a side box. Okay, so anything you can normally do from a box, you can do from an all 4 couples or an all 8. Rule is if it's working around the outside, it's an all 4 couples. If you're working anybody across the center, it would normally be an all 8. There are some combinations. Okay, so if we have a head scoot back, just the heads. Okay. Okay. Do it again, just to get the idea of it. Okay, look where you went and where you came back. Side, scoot back. Okay. And scoot back again. And you notice again, we're reinforcing the mainstream definition in the first instance. Now what we're going to do is to combine these 2 scoot backs into one smooth formation. And the important thing is to remember where the scoot starts. It starts in the very center. So if I have these head girls just step forward, that's actually where your scoot begins. Okay, have the side girls step forward. That's where it begins. You're going to turn 1/2 while the boys run to the right. When you've done your half, girls, you walk straight out. Okay, remember you turn your half. Good. So let's try it again with the boys now then. All 8 scoot back. Yeah, we prefer that bit. It's the nice bit, isn't it? It's much smoother. Okay, so there's a straightforward example.
Norm Wilcox, just a comment. I use the word back to indicate they'll come back to the same person.
The problem we run into is like, say you did all 4 couples touch a quarter, then you say all 8 scoot back. But what if you do a call where you designate heads and sides? Do they change even though they're at the side of the set, but they started out as heads?
Okay, well, there is a convention regarding heads and sides, that if you're ahead, you remain ahead, regardless of your position in the square. Does that answer your question? Okay, yeah, I accept that. That was just for the benefit of this. Okay. Was you going to say something, John? No. So, move on again. You take something like an all 8 pass and roll. Now let's have everybody all together. All 8 pass and roll. Hey, no, that was pretty good. Obviously got callers in this question. Girls, you got the easy part there, I think. So let's try it again. All 8 pass and roll. Okay, so remember, if you do an all 8 pass and roll, the original trailer, the trailer here, is the one who comes and stays back at home. Okay? The leaders are the ones who are going to end up on the opposite side of the square. The dancer doesn't need to know that, but you sure do. Okay? Especially when you're teaching, because they'll use different versions, as dancers do. Okay. All 8 pass and roll your neighbor. Aha, that's better. Bit more, bit more, bit more. Just here, sir. Okay. Okay. Remember to yourself, when you pass and roll your neighbor, you always return to your original partner. The mini box partner. Give your dancers that clue. At least if they don't know the pattern, they know where to finish up. So in an all 8, in any follow your neighbor, you always return to your original side-by-side partner. Okay, your Russian wave partner. Everybody hinge. That's the left hinge there. Okay. The important thing, again, if you're teaching this, is to stress where the three-quarter cast begins. And the girls at the head spots, if you step into the center again, take exactly the center plane there. That's the point where your three-quarter begins. And remember also when you're teaching, three-quarters is one of the hardest moves to dance. It's the easiest one to lose your orientation on. So try to get your dancers into the habit of doing a half and a quarter. Okay, so do a half foot. Don't do your, but you're going to do a half first and then a quarter. That gives you your three-quarters. Much easier to dance. It's much easier to mark the half position. So let's have those two side girls now step forward. Remembering this is exactly where you start. You've got 4 right angles here. You're going to turn it to half and a quarter. The boys left roll. Okay. Roll. Yeah, we start. Okay, we're just doing a follow your neighbor there. It's just to follow your neighbor. Okay. So that's the important thing, is to stress the position at where the start begins, where the action of the turning begins. What the dancers will tend to do, they'll start here. Okay, everybody hinge. Girls, you can turn back and look in for a while. Yes, the person who's going into the start will tend to twist and start the three-quarter cast from that position. Okay, let me just show you one more. I say I have got a handout so you can take these home and work on them to your heart's content. But the other one, which also creates problems, everybody turn into the promenade position. Okay, this time we're going to do an all 4 couples. Can you come back a little bit? Okay, we're going to do an all 4 couples cross fire. Okay, and all 4 couples cross fire. Okay, you can let go of your partner's hand for a second. What happens in a crossfire? What's the first part? Centers trade. So let's work on that one to start with. Centers trade. And then finally you're going to extend, but don't extend yet. The next part is the ends cross fold. Okay, so let's have your ends cross fold. Finish facing in. Okay, we're going a little bit too far on the cross fold. We're facing in when we finished. Okay. So remember, when you're teaching this one, you've got to get your cross folders only progressing 1/4 around the outside. You know, like yourself there, they'll tend to go a little bit too far. So we're starting in a 2-face line down here. A cross fold action would bring us round to there in the normal crossfire. Okay? Emphasize that to your dancers to find it so much more easy. Okay. And the boys can now extend, and you'll find there's your 4 mini waves. Okay? Do a hinge. Have the girls do a U-turn back. All 4 couples crossfire. Girls start a half and extend, boys cross fold, turn to face in, step to a left-handed ocean wave. Forward, girls, there you go. Absolutely perfect. Okay. Nicely done, Square. Very nice. Okay. Okay, anybody got any questions? It looks like Chip's got a question here.
I called this at the advanced club dance we had, and a very strong club, but they had trouble with this one. All 4 couples, quarter in. Yeah, the head should end in the side position, side should end in the head position.
The rule for doing that is quite clearly explained in the definitions. It's the static square position rule, where you quarter in and then you move to the footprints of the wall you're facing. Okay, so if you quarter in, you've got to go into that facing in position when you're finished, or the facing out position. Okay? So everybody quarter out. Once you've quartered out, you've got to move forward. Okay? Quarter out and move forward. Okay? It's not a very comfortable call. It's not a very comfortable call. Especially if you're facing in. You tend to crash into each other. Do we have a question there?
Jay Silva from Northwood, New Hampshire. I did have a question. When you did your quarter out and then move forward, is it moving forward, passing right, or left shoulders?
Right. The first one's always right. Okay?
The item that Chuck just brought up as far as the all four couples quarter in and things like that, I guess my mind is this: if the call works towards the partner first, like a quarter in or a partner tag, for example, you do the call first, and then you move whatever it takes. You may be moving forward, or you may be moving backwards in order to occupy the spot that you need to be in when it's all four couples. Just a little touch.
If you want to face in again, just very quickly, on the quarter in, if you use the heads, show it with the heads first, then show it with the sides as well, because that will show them where they want to finish up. If you have the heads quarter in, you would normally be in the middle. Okay, now have your sides quarter in. No, you can stay there, heads. Sides, they should be in the middle as well. Okay, well, you can't all be in the middle, so you then move out and occupy your outside spots. So you move over for me home, thank you. That's all. So you're showing them where they would normally finish up, and it gives them some idea as to why they have to move out, simply because you cannot get 8 people on the center 4 spots. Okay.
Everything that was said here on the all four couples quarter in and quarter out is totally correct. I should inject that a couple callers, they really like this idea. A couple callers that travel around, and they use it as a challenge. And the challenge dancers don't like it. They'll do it, but they don't really like it. And so I would say consider only doing this for your home group, because it hasn't, at least in this country, hasn't sold well. Even after it's over and the dancers are successful, they still don't like it that well. Now, you can do it with your home group, it's no problem, because then they'll know what you're doing.
If I'll just do one more thing just before we finish. We talked about one or two of the more complex examples there, but the simpler ones are actually quite neat to the dancers. If you have them do an all 4 couples swing through, it's not the same as an all 8 swing through, but in their mind it may feel the same. So we're actually doing this swing through with the ones we're facing, okay? So what we're doing, we're dividing from our partner, passing right shoulders, and beginning the swing through at this point. Now becomes an all 8 swing through, okay? But it's a neat one to use. Let's have a hinge and the boys run. I'll come back to you, Bill. Similarly, if you do an all 4 couples, spin the top. And again, we're using the simpler terminology here. The dancer will get a lot of fun out of this. Turn and face your corner, pass right shoulder, step to the wave and spin the top. Don't forget to move up 1/4 on the outside. Don't lose your partner on the top. Then you can have an all 4 couples recycle. Remember who you're recycling with. You're recycling with your own ocean wave. Okay? The girls lead in the recycle. Did they not move up? Okay, do you want to move another quarter, boys? Okay. Okay. Okay, all 4 couples recycle. Girls the lead. Make sure you move 1/4 around the square. Okay. Just 1/4. Okay. Did you want to make a point?
I was going to ask the question, is that recycle legal at A, or is that C?
That's an ordinary recycle. That's an ordinary recycle. That's a mainstream recycle. It's not a facing recycle. It's just a standard recycle, and we use it in the all 8 or all 4 couples concept. You can do equally an all 4 couples facing recycle. Sorry. The recycle. Okay. Well, let's take it from an all 4 couples. Bill, he's desperate to speak. Hang on, Chuck. Go on, Bill.
Okay, the first question is this hand, and it's when he was doing the swing through and the spin the top, he's utilizing the facing couple rule. You know, it's in the preamble of your, I'm not sure where it begins, mainstream plus, so he's using that part. So, you know, facing couple opposed to ocean wave rule, okay? And that's what he's using. The second question was, when you had the waves across and you said, did you say all 4 couples recycle, or did you say, okay, I just wanted to clear because I wasn't sure which one you said.
For the tape, I did say all 4 couples. And that was because the action is taking place around the perimeter of the square. Nobody crosses the center of the square. That's the basic rule there. Let's have all 4 couples pass the ocean. Okay, so we got ourselves back in this infamous ocean wave again. So we're going to do a standard recycle, remembering, if you'd like to get these 2 guys just to drop your hands and slide out a little bit. Okay, if you recycle, you're going to be recycling with these people. So you're going to progress 1/4 around the square to face in with your partner in the half sachet position. Okay, put your hands back in, boys. Okay, so girls, you lead in the recycle. Do your all 4 couples recycle. Make sure you just go 1/4 around the square. Good. Now look at it. Compare that action you've done an all 4 couples recycle there, okay, from an ocean wave. Let's do the all 4 couples facing recycle. I did think it was advanced. It's okay. Roll away, please. Yes, roll away, just to make it easy. Yep. Okay. So we're going to do the all 4 couples facing recycle here. So let's look at the head spots again. Sides, just back out a little bit. Let's have the heads facing recycle. You remember, you progressed a 1/4 round on the recycle. Okay, sides, do your facing recycle. All the boys run around the girl. Everybody bend the line. All 4 couples do a facing recycle. Move around the outside there. Check your wave. Very good. Boys run. Bend your line. Thank you.
Dan Webster, Minneapolis. I was just trying to understand what the difference between all 4 couples and all 8 is. You tried to explain it, but I didn't quite catch it.
Basically, the rule says that if there's anybody who's passing through the center, say like the scoot back there, if I'm doing a scoot back, I'm going through the center of the square. Okay? That's the all 8. The all 4 couples is where everybody works around the perimeter of the square, and then you get the one which combines the 2, and nobody's got a name for those yet.
Then would you say from a squared set, all 8 wheel through or all 4 couples wheel through? All right, square up. What Ed's going to do with this? My rule of thumb has always been, if you're in a squared set, it's all 4 couples. If you're in a VAR setup, it's all 8. So I would call this all 4 couples wheel through, and the girls, of course, would 1/4 out to the right, and the boys would make a right-hand star and walk out to their partner. All 4 couples wheel through. Girls just move up there and then just wait for your partner to show up. California twirl. But that's people are. I call it all 4 couples, but you would call it all 8 because people are moving through the center. Is that okay?
That would be the only reason why I would call that an 8. If you want them to make a right-hand star in the center, use the all 8 terminology. But because 2 people are doing different things, it could be either one.
Okay, thank you to the square. Nice hand for the square. We yeah.
Norm Wilcox. Why then was the facing recycle on all 4 couple recycle? Because the boys are going into the middle making a star. They aren't turning it, but they're going into the center making a star.
No, it's an interesting point. There are 1 or 2 examples where you can argue whether it is all 8 or whether it's all 4 couples. The boys are actually not completing their action in the center. They're completing their action around the outside. But if I'm standing here as a boy, I'm not strictly speaking going into the center. I'm finishing in the center. I'm moving around here. There's nobody else there. Okay? But it is a moot point because there are 1 or 2 different examples throughout where you've got combinations. And I mean, you've got Ed here saying in a wheel through, is that an all 8 or is it an all 4 couples? Well, then we would argue that it is an all 8 because it goes across the middle. But Ed's a much greater authority than I am. Believe it.
Okay, we're just ready to conclude. Let me put all this discussion that we've just had in the last 2 or 3 minutes in perspective for you. About 10 years ago, this whole question of all 8 versus all 4 couples on specific calls came up, and there was a 2-year harangue on it by Bill Davis and some other callers, and eventually they agreed there's no agreement. They just gave up. And so that's why we still have this disagreement on some of these calls. There's no consensus on some of these calls of whether it's called all 8 or all 4 couples. You can really make a case either way, as we saw here. Want to thank Dave Clay and Bill Harrison for being part of our panel. Dave has his handouts. We didn't get, unfortunately, to too much of the choreography part of the dance. I have some notes if somebody wanted to just take dictation on some choreographical ideas. You can see me up here or see me at lunch, and I'll just throw out some of the things that you might consider for using at a dance. Thank you all very much for being here.